people saying that they saw him punch you.
Well, to be honest, I definitely hit him first.
Our focus is to finding Gabby. Gabby and her family deserve it.
Human remains were discovered, consistent with the description of Gabby Petito.
We're out here with our law enforcement partners. We're searching for Brian Laundrie.
We hereby find the cause and manner of death to be death by strangulation, and manner is homicide.
We felt it was important to come home so we could mourn her, and when they're ready to release her, we will be bringing her home.
Investigators found what appears to be human remains, along with personal items belonging to Brian Laundrie.
Welcome back to Closing Arguments. Today, a Florida Circuit Court judge ruled that the civil lawsuit filed by the family of Gabby Petito against the parents of Brian Laundrie will move forward. Now, the suit alleges that Brian Laundrie's parents, Chris and Roberta, knew that their son had killed Gabby and that they knew where her body was located, but stayed silent, causing them emotional distress. The judge's order denied the Laundrie's motion to dismiss today, and in the written order, she explained very thoroughly why. Had the Laundries truly stayed silent, the court would have granted their motion to dismiss in the Laundries' favor. But they did not stay silent. Remember, this is referring to a statement that was released on September 14th of 2021 by the Laundrie's family attorney, Stephen Bertolino. This happened during the search for Gabby Petito, and this is what the statement read. It is our understanding that a search has been organized for Miss Petito in or near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. On behalf of the Laundrie family, it is our hope that the search for Miss Petito is successful and that Miss Petito is reunited with her family. So the judge went on to say, as alleged by the plaintiffs, the Laundries made their statement knowing that Gabby was dead, knowing the location of her body, and knowing that her parents were frantically looking for her. If this is true, then the Laundrie statement was particularly callous and cruel, and it is sufficiently outrageous. The state claims for intentional infliction of emotional distress. We spoke to the attorney who released this statement from the Laundries last week, and here's what he had to say about it.
I don't believe the note was misleading at all. I think the note was a generic, I should say the statement. The statement was a generic statement put out. If you recall, the presence of the press was bountiful, to say the least, and everybody was clamoring for some statement or some comment coming from the Laundrie side. You know, we only know certain things at the time that they're told to us. Just as you heard Mr. Reilly say today that he doesn't have all the information from the FBI. I did not have all the available information on the date that statement was released. Chris and Roberta, you know, had probably less information than I had. And when all said and done, if you take that statement standing alone, it is not an outrageous statement. It's not an intentionally harmful statement in any way. And I think it's a generic statement that just about any defense lawyer would put out when pressed for a comment as to the investigation that was going on at the time.
And joining me now in Venice, Florida, is the Petito family attorney, Pat Reilly. Thank you, Pat, for being with us this evening on Closing Arguments. Now, before we get into some legalities that I want to talk through with you, tell me your initial response when you found out this motion to dismiss was denied.
Well, I think everyone in the office heard my response, and maybe some of the neighbors, because we were anxiously awaiting this decision. We didn't know when we would get it. And obviously it was a good day for us. And I can tell you that Joe Petito and Nicole Schmidt were very happy with the judge's decision as well.
And did you expect the decision today, or was it something you just knew the judge would be issuing a written order and you had to wait until that came out?
At the end of the hearing last week, the judge said he was going to take it under advisement and render a decision within 2 weeks. So today is the 8th day since the hearing, so I was pleasantly surprised to receive the opinion today.
Yeah, not that you were counting, right? I well know I was a trial attorney for years, and then as a former judge, I had to write opinions, and I know that people count, and they're waiting every single day, and they keep looking to see, has that order come out? Because this is a really significant outcome. Obviously, the Petitos going forward with this lawsuit, a civil lawsuit for the intentional emotional infliction of emotional distress. I just butchered all that together, but you know, the intentional infliction of emotional distress claim now going forward means that they have a legal path, a legal avenue to seek recourse against the Laundrie. So a huge finding. Let's talk through some of the legal aspects of it now, if we could, Pat. First of all, let's talk about a little bit for viewers to understand the difference between when you go to trial and you have to prove using evidence and you've got a jury, if sometimes a judge, usually a jury that has to make the findings of fact applying the law, versus a motion for summary judgment when the judge really has to assume all of the facts and pleadings are true. So start with that premise and where the judge has to start.
Sure. On a motion to dismiss, all the judge has to review is the complaint and the arguments that are raised by, in this instance, the Laundrie's attorney. And the judge is obligated to accept whatever is alleged in the complaint as true and then determine if those facts are sufficient to support, in this instance, a cause of action for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And thankfully, the judge found that they do support a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress. So it's not the time to come forward with evidence. That time will come. This is just the time where the judge accepts as true what we've pled in the complaint.
All right, so tell me if you agree or disagree with the judge. When the judge did look at different facts in this case and started off with first saying the court doesn't find that there was a legal duty for the Laundries to report to the Petito family. There's no legal duty that exists. So if you just take that one piece of the opinion of the order, would you agree or disagree with that in and of itself?
If it were just based upon the fact that they didn't say anything, I think that we would not be here having this conversation today.
And that's what the judge went on to say, and I'm reading the one line that makes it a significant pivoting point, I think, for the Laundries, and that is, but they did not stay silent. And the court then goes to look at that statement. The Laundries in the September 14th, 2021 statement issued by their attorney. That's the one we just read a few minutes ago. And then found that looking at that, they actually made a statement that changes it for the Laundrie. So that's the next piece of it. And I'm tongue in cheek, I think I'm going to say to you, I'm going to assume that you agreed with that reasoning of the court, but tell us a little bit more about that piece.
Well, I think it's not just the fact that the statement was made by Attorney Bertolino as an agent for the Laundries and stated in that statement saying he's speaking on their behalf. I think also the judge noted in his opinion that there were also times when Attorney Bertolino spoke up and said no comment at a time when the Petito family was trying to locate Gabby. I'm not sure if his decision at this point relied in any way upon that fact, but he did point out that when they spoke up at first, they said no comment. I think the statement, I heard Attorney Bertolino earlier say the statement is a very plain statement in and of itself. He's correct. In and of itself, it is, but it was made at a time when we believe Christopher Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie were aware that Gabby had been murdered by Brian and that they knew where the body was located.
And Pat, is that the outrageous conduct from your perspective? And let me just lay the groundwork. You know everything I'm about to say, but for the viewers, a reminder, and this was in the court's opinion, that there are really 4 elements that have to be contained in the initial complaint for the intentional infliction of emotional distress. And so the first is the deliberate or reckless infliction of mental suffering. But that second prong is outrageous conduct that caused emotional distress and that the distress was severe. So how would you define, if I met you and you said there's outrageous conduct, exactly what is it in this case?
Well, you can't look at that statement alone. You have to put it in context, as I said earlier, of what they knew at the time that statement was made. Again, they knew that Gabby was deceased and had been murdered by Brian. They knew where the body was located. They knew that the Petito family was desperately seeking any information that they could find to find Gabby. They blocked Nicole Schmidt from having any contact with them. They went on vacation and then that statement was issued. And when you put all of that into context and not just look at that statement alone, but knowing when that statement was made that it was untruthful, that it was giving false hope to the Petito family that they could find Gabby, that's outrageous.
And I know that taking the complaint as true, which the court had to do, Brian murdered Gabby on August 27th and then told his parents on the 28th of August. And then to your point, they took vacation with Brian at the beginning of September. So certainly those are the things alleged. All right, Pat Reilly, thank you for being with us again. I know you're going to stay with us. Before we take a short break, here's what's ahead in the next hour of closing arguments. On the docket tonight in Iowa County, Wisconsin, the possessed by evil murder trial. Sean Pickett charged with murder, accused of beating and stabbing his mother and dog to death. He claims he was hearing evil voices. We'll get you ready for the next live trial on Court TV.
Count 1 alleges first-degree intentional homicide in that it alleges that Mr. Pickett did cause the death of Susan D. Pickett with intent to kill that person, a Class A felony.
Still with us tonight on Closing Arguments, we have the Petito family attorney, Pat Reilly. Pat, let's talk a little bit about, the developing news and breaking news that happened not long ago, the journal of Brian Laundrie that was released specifically because the FBI met with you as well as the attorney for the Laundrie family to return items that belong to the Petitos, belong to the Laundries. What can you tell us about what items in addition to that were returned first to the Petito family?
Basically, what was returned was personal items of Gabby, clothing, notebooks. She was a fantastic artist, and so there were a lot of her drawings and things of that nature. Cameras, the videos, a lot of photographs. So basically, it was that kind of personal stuff that was returned to Gabby's parents. And Nicole Schmidt was there with me, fortunately, to help to identify what was Gabby's and what was not Gabby's.
I can't even imagine, Pat. I don't think any of us can really imagine what it must be like to be the Petito family and the devastation, the grief, the trauma, all of those things. But did receiving those items bring any at all kind of solace or closure or help in dealing with the grief of losing Gabby Petito?
I certainly don't think at this point with this litigation that's going on that there can be closure, but I do believe that there were times when Nicole was smiling and happy to see things that belonged personally to Gabby. But this whole process is incredibly difficult, and I do think that to some degree they're still numb and processing the whole thing, but they're doing a terrific job getting through it.
Yeah, obviously, certainly not surprising. Tell us about, because there's been some talk about perhaps Brian's mother had written a letter to him, and that might have been an item that was returned by the FBI to the Laundrie family. Are you privy to what they may have received in that exchange of items?
Sure, we were all in the same room, so we had agreed beforehand for the most part as to what belonged to whom based upon the receipt from the execution of the search warrant at the Laundrie home. There were just a few items that we weren't certain who it belonged to, so we had to look through those things. But the Laundries not only got the notebook, they also received a letter which Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie. It's undated, and as I've said before, on the cover, on the envelope, it said "burn after reading." I don't know when it was written, but what was contained within that letter leads me to believe it was written after Gabby had been murdered. And we had asked for a copy of that, and Attorney Bertolino would not agree to give us a copy.
All right, I can assume that might be something requested in the discovery process, which leads me to the next natural question in the last minute that we have together. Pat, tell us, we understand there's a court date, July 7th, which is next Thursday. What's next in this litigation?
Actually, that court appearance was simply scheduled to set deadlines in the case, but we've already prepared a case management report, so we won't be going forward with that hearing. I've already prepared some discovery and sent it out to the attorney for the Laundries. So we are in that process. One of the things that I'm looking for is that letter, and I'm looking forward to taking the deposition of Christopher and Roberta Laundrie.
Is there anything else you'd like to say in the last 15 or 20 seconds on behalf of the family?
I think on their behalf, I'd like to thank everyone who has expressed support for them throughout what they endured when Gabby was missing, and the support that they're receiving from people now as we're involved in this litigation. It's difficult for everyone, but I know that Joe and Nicole appreciate it greatly.
All right, we have to take a break. Pat Reilly, thank you for joining us as the Petito family attorney.